Austin Harvey had finally reached the peak of his career. After years of relentless work and dedication, he had become the leader of the Orbit Space Council, the world's most prestigious organization focused on extraterrestrial life and space exploration. The wisdom he had accumulated over the years, coupled with his unmatched experience, had made him the Council's natural choice for this position. For Austin, however, becoming the leader was not the end of his journey, it was merely a new beginning. He was determined to advance the Orbit Space Council to unprecedented heights, expanding humanity's reach among the stars. This pursuit of knowledge often drove him to travel beyond Earth, to the distant colonies scattered across the galaxy, where humanity had established outposts for research and exploration. Austin prided himself on building solid alliances with the colony's leaders, carefully navigating the delicate diplomacy that these interactions required. More than once, he had even shared classified information with them, valuing mutual trust over rigid secrecy. Although this strategy kept his allies close, it left him vulnerable to those who might seek to exploit such openness. It wasn't lost on him that his reputation as a reliable ally also made him a prime target for manipulation. The pressures of his new role weighed on him heavily. People around him, including members of the Council, often suggested he take steps to cultivate a more mysterious and detached public image, one befitting his powerful position. A move to a more private, secure residence seemed wise, but Austin found himself caught in the whirlpool of his new responsibilities, unwilling to divert attention from the matters at hand. The matter of moving could wait. One evening, after a long and taxing day at the Council, Austin returned home, poured himself a cup of coffee, and stretched out on his bed, hoping to quiet his racing thoughts. Yet, an unshakable tension gnawed at him. Unable to settle, he decided to go down to his pool. The cool, clear water sparkled under the night sky, reflecting the countless stars above. He took a seat on a lounge chair by the pool, the silence soothing his nerves. But as he lay there, his mind flooded once again with the work awaiting him, the responsibilities piling up with every passing moment. He felt the weight of leadership press down on him, the awareness that every decision he made now bore consequences far beyond his own life. Suddenly, a faint splashing sound disturbed the silence. Austin dismissed it at first, thinking it was merely the gentle movement of the water. But the sound grew louder, more distinct, prompting him to sit up and peer into the pool. To his utter astonishment, he saw a figure in the water, a young, stunningly beautiful woman. Her ethereal appearance was like nothing he had ever seen. She possessed a delicate, otherworldly grace, her eyes gleaming with an intensity that matched the stars. As Austin struggled to find words, the woman emerged from the water with an air of authority. "What are you doing here?" he managed to ask, finally breaking the silence. "My name is Zeta," she replied, her voice cool and steady. "I've come with a purpose, and you will do as I say. If you don't, you'll regret it." Her words held an edge that made Austin's heart race. Yet his instincts as a leader kicked in, and he tried to match her gaze, refusing to show any fear. "What exactly are you threatening me with?" he asked, searching her face for clues. "And what is it you want from me?" Zeta's eyes sparkled with a dangerous confidence. "I hope you're not foolish enough to think of turning your back on the colony you've been so eager to work with. They've sent me to ensure your continued cooperation, and they're going to allow me to operate within the Orbit Space Council as an agent. Should you refuse, your life will be the price." Austin could see he was dealing with someone who would not hesitate to carry out her threat. Yet he refused to back down. Keeping his voice calm, he said, "There's no need for threats. I'll consider your request." But Zeta wasn't finished. "One more condition," she said. "You're not to move from this house. I'll be visiting frequently to ensure you're keeping your end of the agreement." Austin's mind raced. He knew he had to find a way to regain control of the situation. "Perhaps you don't need to come and go so often," he suggested, keeping his tone light. "Why not just stay here? We can work things out together day by day." Zeta seemed momentarily taken aback. She paused, considering his proposal, before finally stepping out of the pool. She took a seat by the edge, dipping her feet into the water. After a moment of silence, she replied, "Maybe we could reach an understanding somewhere between loyalty to my colony and working together." Sensing an opening, Austin pressed forward. "I know your colony's leader well. He sent you here to strengthen his position, not ours. But if you're with me, you'll never have to worry about your future as long as I'm around." Something in his words softened Zeta's demeanor, and she offered a faint smile. "I apologize for my initial approach," she said. "I was following orders, but perhaps there's more to consider." Austin nodded, relieved to have found some common ground. "From now on, we're partners. You can stay here, but I still need to move soon to ensure our safety. Your colleagues might not take kindly to your loyalty if they find out." Zeta, intrigued by his quick thinking, agreed with a nod. Her earlier suspicion had melted into admiration. In those few minutes, Austin had managed to turn a potential adversary into an ally, or so he thought. The next day, Austin went to work with a renewed sense of purpose. Yet, he couldn't shake the thoughts of Zeta. She lingered in his mind, her beauty and confidence tugging at him. He realized that, while he had won her favor, he had also allowed her to plant herself in his heart, a distraction he couldn't afford. When he returned home that evening, Zeta was waiting for him, standing in the dim light of the living room, a knowing smile playing on her lips. She moved toward him with an elegance that took his breath away, her gaze intense and unwavering. Austin felt a momentary hesitation, knowing he was treading dangerous ground. Yet when she reached him, greeting him with a kiss, all rational thoughts melted away. The warmth of her touch, the softness of her lips he couldn't resist. Their connection intensified in that single moment, blossoming into a passion that neither could deny. As they shared this closeness, Austin's mind, usually disciplined and focused, began to dissolve into the thrill of her presence. His sense of responsibility, his commitment to his role, and even his growing doubts about Zeta's true intentions faded. All he could feel was her warmth, her laughter in his ear, her arms around him. She had become his weakness, the one vulnerability that threatened his resolve. And as the night unfolded, he surrendered to his emotions fully, allowing himself to be swept away in Zeta's embrace. Hours passed in a blur of intimacy and whispers, and for once, he let himself be entirely vulnerable. But as dawn's light crept through the windows, casting a soft glow over Zeta as she slept beside him, Austin's mind began to drift back to the responsibilities that awaited him. He lay there, staring at the ceiling, conflicted. For years, he had dedicated himself to building the reputation and influence of the Orbit Space Council, and here he was, allowing his feelings for this enigmatic woman to overshadow all that he'd achieved. He knew that Zeta's presence was a distraction, one that would inevitably cost him if he didn't regain control. But part of him, against all logic, wanted to keep her close, drawn by the mystery and allure she embodied. Over the following days, Zeta remained at his side, her presence both exhilarating and unsettling. She filled his life with a thrill he hadn't experienced before, a sense of excitement and danger that only intensified his attraction to her. Each night, she would appear by his side, sometimes with a teasing smile, other times with a gaze so intense it made his heart race. They would talk for hours, sharing laughter, arguments, and whispered confessions in the quiet hours of the night. He found himself opening up to her in ways he had never done with anyone, feeling an almost magnetic pull that made him vulnerable. However, at work, the effects of this new infatuation began to show. His colleagues grew concerned, noting the increasing distractions that seemed to consume him. Important meetings were rescheduled, and projects delayed as Austin's focus wavered. Orbit Space Council members who once looked to him for guidance now cast worried glances, and soon, whispers of dissent began circulating among the team. Austin's closest advisors expressed their concern in subtle ways, but even their hints failed to pull him back to reality. One evening, Austin received an urgent message from his intelligence chief, warning him of rumors about the colony leaders and their potential agendas. But Austin dismissed these worries, unwilling to believe that Zeta, who now filled his thoughts day and night, could be part of any conspiracy. He reasoned that his advisors were simply overreacting to the personal choices he made outside of work. Still, in the quiet moments, a faint doubt lingered. One evening, after another intense night with Zeta, he confronted her gently. "Tell me honestly," he said, brushing a strand of hair from her face, "what exactly brought you to Earth? Why are you here with me?" Zeta's smile faltered for just a second, but she recovered quickly. "Do you really think you need to question this?" She replied, her voice soft but deflective. "You and I were connected in ways that defy logic. Isn't that enough?" Austin wanted to believe her, to trust that the connection they shared was real. But even as he nodded, a seed of uncertainty had been planted in his mind. Still, he chose to push these concerns aside, telling himself that she would prove her loyalty in time. They continued to fall deeper into their relationship, with Austin abandoning more and more of his duties, preferring the intoxicating thrill of Zeta's presence over the demands of his position. Yet Austin's prolonged absences and inattention were not without consequence. His staff members, many of whom had admired him as a leader, began to lose faith. Resignations became more frequent, and with each departure, Austin could feel the stability of the Orbit Space Council slipping away. The Council's projects slowed, its influence waned, and internal morale crumbled. For the first time, Austin's organization, his life's work, was at risk of falling apart. One evening, Austin returned home to find Zeta waiting for him, a strange light in her eyes. She embraced him, pulling him close, and as they shared yet another passionate moment, he felt the familiar pang of doubt tugging at his heart. Just as he was about to speak, however, Zeta leaned in and whispered, "Austin, my dear, don't you ever wonder why things have grown so difficult lately?" His heart skipped a beat as he tried to process her words. She pulled back slightly, her smile almost taunting. "You see," she continued, "I am not here by chance. My colony sent me because they knew your greatest weakness, your heart. And they were right. Look at you, the great Austin Harvey, brought to his knees by a mere woman." The reality hit him like a blow. He stared at her, stunned, the words catching in his throat. Zeta's expression remained cool, her gaze unwavering. "Your influence, your power, it was all too great. My leader wanted you out of the way, to destabilize the council. I simply did what I was asked. And now that the council is in shambles, I have completed my mission." Austin's mind reeled, the enormity of the betrayal too great to comprehend. "But he stammered, feeling the ache of betrayal. "I thought we." Zeta tilted her head, studying him with a look that was equal parts amusement and pity. "You were a means to an end, Austin. Nothing more." With that, she turned away, her footsteps echoing in the empty silence as she made her way to the door. Before leaving, she cast him one last glance. "Thank you for making this so easy," she said softly, a hint of mockery in her tone. And with that, she was gone, leaving Austin alone in the dim silence of his once vibrant home. Austin stood frozen, the weight of her words settling heavily on his shoulders. As her footsteps faded into the night, he felt his reality unraveling, each heartbeat echoing in the empty silence. The realization that he had been nothing more than a pawn in her scheme clawed at him, shaking the very core of his identity. Zeta, the woman he had trusted, who had awakened emotions he hadn't felt in years, had used his vulnerability to dismantle the life he'd painstakingly built. The once great leader of the Orbit Space Council now found himself a man undone, his organization in shambles, his colleagues alienated, and his reputation stained. In that moment, Austin's home felt like an empty shell, stripped of warmth and purpose, haunted by memories that he could no longer bear. Yet, as he took a shaky breath, a new feeling took root within him, a smoldering determination, an intense drive to reclaim what had been stolen from him. He knew that the journey back wouldn't be easy. He had lost the trust of his team, his reputation lay in ruins, and the council itself was teetering on the edge of collapse. But Austin was not one to yield easily. The betrayal that had crushed him also sparked a resolve he hadn't felt in years. He knew he couldn't simply undo the damage Zeta had inflicted, but he could rebuild stronger, wiser, and with a newfound understanding of the forces at play beyond Earth. Over the next few days, Austin took to his office at the council, though his presence was met with cold stares and hushed whispers. Many of his trusted advisors had left, and those who remained watched him with skepticism. Rumors of his recklessness had spread through the organization like wildfire, and for the first time, Austin had to confront the consequences of his choices head-on. It was a humbling experience, yet it steeled his resolve. He knew he couldn't change the past, but he could learn from it. His first step was to reach out to the few remaining allies he still trusted within the council. Austin spent hours with them, acknowledging his mistakes, admitting to the vulnerability that Zeta had exploited, and mapping out a plan to stabilize the organization. He was met with doubt, but as days turned into weeks, his persistence began to win some of them back. They saw the sincerity in his efforts and the remorse in his eyes, and slowly, a core team of loyalists began to rally behind him. However, Austin's recovery journey was far from easy. He worked tirelessly, navigating a maze of challenges he had never encountered before. Financial strains, dwindling support from the colony alliances, and the pressing need to rebuild trust weighed heavily on him. Yet, the memory of Zeta's mocking smile drove him forward. She had wanted him defeated, but he would not let her triumph define his legacy. Late one night, after a particularly grueling day, Austin sat alone in his office, poring over strategic documents. The council building was eerily quiet, the hum of distant machinery the only sound breaking the silence. As he leaned back, fatigue settling into his bones, a message pinged onto his screen. It was from an unknown sender, a simple note that sent chills down his spine. "Did you think it would be that easy?" The words lingered, taunting him with the memory of Zeta's betrayal. Austin clenched his fists, feeling a surge of anger mixed with something else and understanding. He realized now that Zeta's deception was part of a larger game, one that reached beyond Earth's borders and into the depths of intergalactic politics. Her influence hadn't ended with her departure. He was still part of a twisted play, one that he would have to navigate carefully. Determined, Austin took the message as a challenge. He would not cower. He would dig deeper. He set up encrypted channels with allies he had cultivated among the colonies, hoping to uncover the truth behind Zeta's mission and the real intentions of the colony leadership. Night after night, he pored over records, intercepted communications, and pieced together a web of alliances and betrayals that spanned far beyond Earth's borders. Slowly, the scope of the colony leaders' ambitions became clear: control over Earth's most powerful institutions, with Austin as their first target. As weeks turned into months, Austin became a man transformed. The betrayal that had once threatened to break him had forged him into a leader unlike any he had ever been, calculating, cautious, and with a keen understanding of trust and power. Through countless sleepless nights and relentless investigation, he uncovered hidden motives, alliances, and secrets that extended to the highest levels of colony leadership. The network he pieced together revealed Zeta's role as more than a seductress. She was an agent, a weapon deployed with ruthless precision. In the quietest moments, when he found himself alone in his office late at night, Austin would think of Zeta, haunted by the woman who had once been his weakness. He no longer felt the sharp sting of betrayal, nor the sadness that had consumed him. Instead, he felt a cold resolve, a promise he had made to himself to rise above the past, stronger and wiser. And as he regained control over the council, rebuilding its influence and alliances one step at a time, he knew that his path had irrevocably changed. He would no longer be the leader he once was, idealistic and trusting. He was something new, a man forged in the fires of betrayal, driven by the memory of a love that had turned to ashes. In the end, Zeta had been right about one thing: she had changed him, but she hadn't destroyed him. As Austin looked out over the city from his office, the weight of his experiences settling over him, he understood that his journey had only just begun.